Good morning. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Benyar BY-5168M. I paid £29 for this watch and I bought the watch from Amazon. So firstly, let's look at the box that the Benyar BY-5168M comes in. The Benyar watch comes in this cardboard outer sleeve which protects the cardboard watch box, and inside that sleeve one has the watch box itself. So it's branded on the lid with Benyar, and the lid of the watch box has two magnets which close the flap down, and I really like that aspect of the watch box. I think it's a feature that other watch manufacturers should use, the use of magnets rather than plastic or metal poppers. So inside the watch box it has a foam piece which you take out and a cutout shape for the watch to protect the watch in shipping. So that works very well. Basic cardboard watch box, but bearing in mind that this watch is only £29, one cannot be critical. I think the watch box does work very well, and it's also very aesthetically pleasing. So I'll talk you through the other items that come with the watch. One also gets this Benyar guarantee card. Now, I bought the watch from Amazon, so the guarantee card isn't stamped. Presumably this is for a dealer to stamp and date and also fill in the reference number and the date of purchase of the piece. The Benyar BY-5168M is covered by a 12-month international guarantee, and it's also covered by Amazon for 12 months, which is very reassuring. One also gets this Benyar Owner's Instruction Manual, which is a booklet, and it goes into detail how to operate the quartz movement. Very useful read if you're unfamiliar with quartz pieces. Lastly, one also gets a Benyar branded polishing cloth, so nicely executed microfiber cloth, and it's always nice to get accessories like polishing cloths with a watch. So at £29, I think it's very nice to get a well presented watch with a polishing cloth and a comprehensive owner's instruction manual, bearing in mind it's a low tier price point piece. Now the first thing I want to bring to your attention is when I was measuring this watch I actually had an accident, and unfortunately I dropped the watch on the ground, and if you look closely at the 5 o'clock position on the mirror polished bezel, you'll see there are some dents and scratches. So I just want to clarify that that's not Benyar's fault. It's not a production defect. It's actually my own fault. I dropped the watch when I was measuring up the dimensions. So apologies for that. So with regards to this piece, the Benyar BY-5168 is clearly an homage to the Jaeger LeCoultre Polaris, and it does that very well. It's a very good homage to the Polaris. It has the exact same large Arabic numerals and the same symmetrical dial layout with a date complication at 3 o'clock. And although it's a quartz piece rather than automatic like the Polaris, I actually really like it. I think it's very aesthetically pleasing. And although it's a low tier price point piece at only £29, I think that Benyar deserve full credit for producing a very well executed homage to the Jaeger LeCoultre Polaris. So with regards to specifications, it's a 43mm diameter case, so it's a large piece. It is 14mm thick, including the domed hardlex crystal. It has a 22mm lug width, and it has a lug to lug measurement of 50mm. Now the watch weighs 63 grams on the genuine leather strap. So although it's a large piece at 43mm, it's clearly meant to suit collectors with a larger wrist of 7 to 8 inches. It is actually quite a lightweight piece thanks to being a quartz powered piece rather than an automatic or manual wind mechanical movement piece. So I really like that aspect about the watch. If you're looking for a large piece but want comfort, if you're going to wear a watch for long periods of time, for example 8 to 12 hours per day, really this Benyar quartz piece is ideal because yes, it is large at 43mm, but however it's only 63 grams, so it doesn't have a large amount of heft such as an automatic or manual wind piece would have. Now I really like the fact that it has a hardlex crystal. Hardlex is superior to mineral crystal in that it's coated, so it's more scratch resistant. Now hardlex isn't as scratch resistant as sapphire crystal, but at £29 one isn't going to get a sapphire crystal in the watch. I really like the slight dome to that hardlex crystal. It's very aesthetically pleasing and it adds interest to the watch. So with regards to the rest of the specification, stainless steel case which is mirror polished throughout. It has a push-pull crown which is unsigned but it's very well executed. It pulls out with 2 positive clicks. The first click to the time setting position and the second click to the date complication setting position. So very simple to use and an absolute pleasure to use because of its simplicity. It's a simple quartz movement, so just 2 positions on the crown. The push-pull crown provides an effective hermetic seal to 30 meters of water resistance, which is perfectly acceptable for a daily wear piece. Now, one thing I like about the fact that this is an homage to the Jaeger LeCoultre Polaris is the symmetry of the dial. I like the large 12, 9, 6 and 3 Arabic numerals and also the symmetry of the other applied indices. The dial has a 3D effect because the centre section of the dial is recessed, so it provides a step and a chapter ring minute track, and which complements the design, and it really does enhance the symmetry. The other thing I really like about it is, like the Polaris, it has a textured dial finish. The outer ring is textured and the inner ring is smooth, so 2 contrasting textures to that dial. So although it's matte black, it has a 3D effect due to the applied indices and also that step in the centre section which is recessed. And that's further complemented by the domed hardlex crystal. When one tilts the piece at an oblique angle, one gets the characteristic slight distortion and magnification of the domed crystal. So I really like that 3D effect and I like the symmetry. The date complication is at 3 o'clock. The date wheel is white with black numerals, so it's clearly legible in all light conditions. So very easy to read, very functional, and the fact it has a large dial in that 43mm case means it is a very easy to read piece. So with regards to the case back, it has a solid stainless steel case back which is polished like the case to a flawless mirror finish. The centre section has a satin finish and the specification and the branding of the Benyar brand logo is laser engraved into the case back. So very well executed, it's very nicely finished, and it's nice to see a screw down case back rather than a pressed on case back at this price point. The screw down case back provides an effective second hermetic seal to 30 meters of water resistance. So the genuine leather strap has a solid stainless steel buckle, and as you can see, the buckle is signed with the Benyar brand logo. Very nicely done and a nice touch to get a signed buckle at this price point. I really like the alligator finish leather strap. It's a matte finish rather than glossy, so it really is ideal to suit this watch if it's going to be worn as a daily wear piece rather than a dress watch piece. And I really like the case polishing throughout, it's very well done. The lugs have a nice profile to those 22 lug width lugs. They have a nice curve to the top profile, and that's something one doesn't usually see on watches. Usually it has a straight edge to the flanks of the lugs and also the top side of the lugs, but it's got a nice curve to it, and that really does work very well. It's a very well executed case shape, and it actually works very well to disguise the proportions because 22mm is a large lug width and also 43mm is a large case. And bear in mind that this is quite a tall piece at 14mm thick, including the domed hardlex crystal. But due to that curved profile of the lugs and it's a very smooth shaped case, I think that it really does disguise the large dimensions of the watch very well. So I'll show you the interior of the leather strap because that's something I like about the watch. I think this leather strap, bearing in mind that the watch is only £29, is done to a very high standard. It has Benyar pressed into the strap and the stitching is absolutely flawless on the underside. 2 keepers on the strap, one slides, one's fixed as one would expect. And I really like the quality of it. It's genuine leather, but the underside of it is very well finished. The stitching is done to a very good standard. There are no loose stitches, and I just think it's the kind of strap that one would expect to see on a higher price point piece such as a mid-tier watch. And I think at £29, bear in mind that this is a genuine leather strap, it really is very nicely done and it suits it. I think the 22mm lug width on the strap balances the large head of the piece at 43mm, very well proportioned, and a nice taper from 22mm down to 16mm at the buckle. Very nicely done. So I'll give you a wrist shot and you can see how the watch fits around my 8-inch wrist. Now unfortunately, as you can see, the strap is just a fraction too short to actually do up on my 8-inch wrist. If they just made the strap an inch longer, it would fit my 8-inch wrist. So that's something to bear in mind. If you're a collector with a 6 to 7 inch wrist, this watch will fit you no problem at all. But if you're a collector with a larger wrist of 7 to 8 inches, you are going to need to change the leather strap for a longer one. But I'll hold it on my wrist and you can see how it fits. Now bear in mind that this is a 43mm piece. It actually wraps around the wrist and fits better than one would expect. Yes, it's quite a tall piece at 14mm as I've discussed, so bear that in mind. It's not going to fit underneath a shirt cuff very well, so if you're intending to wear this watch as a daily wear piece, you're going to find it difficult to fit that 14mm tall watch underneath a business shirt cuff. But however, if that's not going to be a problem to you, then I would say yes. It is nice to wear a large piece on the wrist. It does have a feeling of wrist presence, although at only 63 grams it doesn't have any heft. I really like the characteristic distortion of that hardlex crystal, very aesthetically pleasing, and the Jaeger-LeCoultre Polaris style layout is very clear and legible to read. Now there's no AR coating on the underside of the hardlex crystal, so that may be a negative. As you can see, it's highly reflective, and although it is aesthetically pleasing because of the 3D dial and the applied indices, the lack of AR coating and the highly reflective nature of the crystal might be irritating if you're going to wear the watch in direct sunlight or under a bright light, as you can see, because it is highly reflective. I really like it. I like the mirror polished bezel and also the mirror polished flanks to the case and those curved tops of the lugs. Very nicely executed piece, very beautiful on the wrist and incredibly comfortable due to the flat stainless steel screw down case back, as I've discussed. It's really nice to see a screw down case back used at this price point, and I think the 30 meters of water resistant is perfectly acceptable. So let's test out the Lume and we'll see how it performs when it's fully charged up. So I'm going to charge it up to the absolute maximum performance using my 100 LED UV torch. Now, bearing in mind this watch is only £29, it's an inexpensive watch, it's a low tier price point piece. I'm not expecting the Lume to be outstanding. Clearly Benyar are going to have to cut some corners, and so far the quality in terms of the specification of the watch really is very good. To get a hardlex crystal in a watch that only costs £29, for example, is very good. So that's now fully charged to the absolute maximum. Now, I do like the fact that it uses a green tone of Lume, which looks like C3 Superluminova or alternatively Tritium Lume, which is now obsolete. So I like the green tone, and I also like the fact that the dial and hands are fully lumed. The large Arabic numerals are lumed, as you can see, as are the applied indices. So it's nice, it's very aesthetically pleasing, but however I have to say that it doesn't glow very brightly. It's certainly nothing as good as Seiko Lumibrights, for example, used on Seiko 5 watches. So initially the Lume doesn't glow very brightly, but however I'm pleased to report that it is holding Lume for a good length of time. So although it's not bright, it is holding the charge. So I would say that the Lume is acceptable, bearing in mind that this is only £29, although it's nothing outstanding. So overall, what do I think of the watch? Well, I'll surmise the piece. When I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch should meet two criteria. The watch should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price point. Now, this watch is only £29, and I do consider the specification, the build quality and the quality control of the watch to be excellent at that price point. It really is good value and it is a good looking watch, and I really like it. Now, unfortunately, I can't give you any details about the quartz module used in this watch because Benyar simply do not specify which quartz module they use. What I can tell you is this quartz piece is running at within plus or minus 1 second per day, which is perfectly acceptable. That would give an accuracy of plus or minus 30 seconds per month, which is very good. And it uses the LR44 battery, which is a very common battery for quartz modules. So I can't tell you what the battery life is of this quartz module, but I can say that the LR44 is often used in quartz modules which have a 3-year battery life. So the screw down case back is a real advantage in that regard because you can easily unscrew the case back and change the battery yourself when the battery expires, and I really like that aspect. One doesn't need any special tools to remove a screw down case back. So I would like to tell you more about the quartz module, but I simply cannot find anything about it online. But it is running within plus or minus 1 second per day, and I think that's perfectly acceptable. So at £29, I think it's a good looking watch. The lume is the weak point, that is the main negative of the watch, but apart from that, it's a good looking watch, and I think the build quality, the quality control is all very good. So I highly recommend it to you for your consideration. If you're looking for a daily wear piece at only £29, this is it. It's a good homage to the Jaeger LeCoultre Polaris at a very low tier price point piece of only £29. So I highly recommend it. I like the watch. I hope you've liked my review of the Benyar BY-5168M. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you very much.